If you're new here, pause for just a second. Hit subscribe, tap that like button and stay with me. Stay with me not because this story is dramatic, not because it's shocking, but because it's painfully real. Every click, every share, every little bit of support lets me keep sharing stories like this. Stories about families that look normal from the outside. About love that fades quietly, quietly enough that no one notices until it's too late. About choices we swear we'll never make, until life corners us, until we're forced to act, even if the consequences will haunt us forever. My name is Alicia Andrade, and what I'm about to share isn't easy to say out loud. Not because it's inappropriate, not because it's scandalous, because it's the kind of truth most people avoid. It's a story about loneliness that grows unnoticed, about silence that screams louder than any argument ever could, about the cracks in a life you thought was whole, cracks that didn't appear overnight, but formed slowly, imperceptibly, while you were busy surviving. And most of all, it's about one night. One ordinary, forgettable night that changed everything about my family, and about me forever. So please listen closely, because the truth I'm about to tell you, it took me years to face. It was a Friday evening. Not special. Not memorable in any way. Not the kind of night you mark on a calendar, or look back on with nostalgia. Just ordinary. Painfully ordinary. The kind of night that feels exactly like every other one. Dinner was late because I had stayed at work longer than usual. Maybe a TV show before bed if everyone cooperated. Nothing dramatic. Nothing that would hint that life was about to tilt in a direction I never anticipated. But as it turns out, the most ordinary nights are often the ones that end up being the most pivotal. Back then, I was a single mother raising 2 kids on my own. My daughter, Elena, was 16. Sharp. Intelligent. Stubborn. Fiercely independent in ways only teenagers can be. On the surface, she seemed untouchable, emotionally armored, determined to show nothing of what she felt. But I knew better. I knew she felt everything too deeply, and she had learned the safest way to survive was to hide it all behind a wall of sarcasm, attitude, and independence. My son Jonathan was 12. Curious, gentle, endlessly questioning the world. The kind of child who still asked why superheroes wore capes, or whether math would ever actually matter in real life. From the outside, we looked normal. 3 people. 1 home. Shared meals. Shared last name. But beneath that picture, there were cracks. Deep cracks I didn't want to see. Cracks I didn't have the energy to fix. Cracks I convinced myself were normal. And on that particular Friday night, those cracks finally split wide open. We sat around the dinner table, at least physically together. Emotionally, we might as well have been on different continents. Elena was somewhere far away, wrapped in her own teenage world. Jonathan poked at his pasta, twisting noodles around his fork like it might suddenly explain itself. "Mom," he said, squinting at his plate, "why does pasta taste different every time you make it?" I forced a smile. The kind of smile you practice in front of a mirror when no one is looking. "It's improvisation," I said. He shrugged, unimpressed. Elena rolled her eyes and muttered something under her breath. I didn't catch the words, but I felt the weight of them. Sharp, dismissive, heavy. Within minutes, they were bickering. Not playful teasing, not harmless banter, but tense, irritated, exhausting. And I sat there. Present in body. Absent in every other way. Bills were piling up. Work felt endless. A constant uphill battle. My divorce echoed through my life like a wound that refused to close. Somewhere along the way, I'd started to feel invisible in my own home. So I reached for my phone. Not because I needed it, but because the silence in my head was louder than the noise around me. And that's when it hit me. We weren't a family having dinner anymore. We were 3 strangers sharing a table, eating the same food, breathing the same air, living in completely separate emotional worlds. That realization cut deeper than I expected. After dinner, things only escalated. Jonathan and Elena argued over something trivial. The best spot on the couch, of course. Voices rose. Accusations flew. And then, I snapped. "Enough," I said. My voice sharper than I meant it to be. "Both of you. Stop." Elena froze for a half second, then glared at me like I had personally betrayed her. She stormed off to her room, slamming the door so hard the walls shook. Jonathan sank into the couch, arms crossed, lower lip trembling, trying to hide it from me. And beneath my frustration, there was something heavier. Sadness. Fear. The quiet realization that I wasn't holding my family together. I was barely holding myself together. Later that night, I tucked Jonathan into bed. He hugged me tighter than usual. Not like a child clinging to safety, but like someone sensing that something important was slipping away. I kissed his forehead and walked out of the room, feeling like a failure. Not just as a mother, but as a woman, as a human being. Someone who no longer knew where she fit in her own life. I sat alone in the kitchen afterward. The house was quiet. The kind of quiet that should feel peaceful, but instead was suffocating. A half-finished glass of wine sat on the counter. Bills were spread out like accusations. The fridge hummed. The clock ticked. My heartbeat felt too loud. And in that silence, the loneliness I'd carried since my divorce finally caught up with me. Carlos, my ex-husband, hadn't always been cruel. He used to be charming, attentive, the kind of partner you imagine growing old with. But people change. Or maybe they just reveal who they've always been. His betrayal shattered me. Shattered our home. Forced me to rebuild myself from pieces of the woman I used to be. I told myself I had healed. I truly believed that. But sitting there that night, alone, I realized the wounds were still open. Just hidden beneath routines, responsibilities, exhaustion. And then my phone buzzed. One notification. One name glowing on the screen. David. My breath caught. David was different. He was the one who listened during my darkest days, the one who noticed when I felt invisible, the one who understood silence because he lived in his own. I hadn't spoken to him in months. Why now? Why tonight, when I felt weakest? My first instinct was to ignore it, to protect myself. But loneliness is powerful. It pulls you toward anything that feels like warmth, like connection, like life. So I answered.